This is episode 127 of the Double Cross Anime Podcast. I'm Wooper, and here's Mario.
I'm Mario. Hey guys.
So, today, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be running down our lists of our 15 favorite anime films of the last decade. Or I suppose the 2010s.
Yep.
If I say last decade, that's kind of like, 2011 through 2021. No, only films from 2010 to 2019 are counting, and we have some like eligibility rules. So for example, it's all about theatrical release dates. So like Redline is eligible, but Ongaku is not. Just small stuff like that. But
Right.
on a larger scale, it's just two guys listing their favorite anime films of the 2010s.
Yeah. For the last decade, I have watched around like 60 to 70 each movies, and some of which we cover here in the podcast before, which some of them will appear onto my list as well.
Yeah, I think one of the films that we talked about, or two maybe,
Yeah.
two.
I know the one that you're talking about, so
Okay.
maybe that's the one.
I mean, two, I think. Two films that we've discussed previously in like their own individual podcast episodes are on my,
Oh
on my
yes,
list
yes,
here.
yes. I remember the other one. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
spoilers already. All right, how are we doing this? What's the deal?
All right, so we will mention the horrible mention first, and then I think each of us will go through the number 15, 14, and so on.
All right, well, what are your honorable mentions?
All right, my honorable mentions. I have two films. One of them is Children of the Sea. It's like one of the most gorgeous production non-Ghibli films that I've seen in the last decade. But the ending it disappointed me. And the second one is Kizu Monogatari.
I'm shocked that didn't make it onto your main list.
Yeah, it just like just fall short of making my top 15. It's a trilogy that stay a bit too overlong. I enjoy it nonetheless though. How
Was
about
the
yours?
was the disqualifying factor the breast expansion scene?
Mm. it's it it's the other scenes. It's the scene between the main characters and Hanagawa. That's just so long that they try to fill each other up, and I think it just don't belong to the movie at all. And they play for like 20 minutes of that. I think it feels so long.
Yeah, that sounds pretty overindulgent.
Yeah,
But I mean, the Monogatari series is very talky, like that.
and
So,
very indulgent as well.
yeah, I think that's part of the appeal.
Alright, so what are yours?
Sure, I have a whole list here, but I'll try to just pick two. One of my honorable mentions is The Tale of Princess Kaguya.
Really?
Yeah, I was not able
Wow.
to rewatch it. I rewatched a ton of films, more than a dozen,
Yep.
for this list. But I didn't rewatch that one. And the Tale of Princess Kaguya is a film that I feel is a little bit too long. It feels like the story has a fourth act to it. I know when Takahata, I don't know if Takahata wrote the screenplay or if somebody else did the screenplay, but in either case, I know they elaborated quite a bit on the original folktale. They added, plot beats, I suppose, if the original even had a plot. They added things to the story that weren't there, and I think the film is stretched a bit too far. Was stretched a bit too far in that process. It's a beautiful film though. So for the same reason that you included Children of the Sea as an honorable mention, I suppose that's why I have Princess Kaguya. And let me see. Let me pick another one. I'll go with The Legend of Hiei, which is a Chinese wuxia film that came out in 2018. The film has not really stuck in my memory very well. I don't remember it particularly well. I don't remember caring for the characters very much, but I do remember the action scenes being of like the highest caliber. A very cool looking film with animation that make you see it and it makes you wonder how long will it be until China like completely usurps Japan as the leader in 2D animation. Really
Well,
impressive looking.
yeah, well, I think they're on their way. I don't think they're gonna overtake Japan anytime soon now because the anime medium is just huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
But
Like
I would say for sure that the China animation production is like the top four in the world right now, just behind Japan, American,
in
and
France.
and France. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, a lot of China. We did a recent podcast episode on Chinese anime, and I mean that was just a very
Hmm.
small sampling.
Yeah.
But
True.
a lot of Chinese anime that I have seen just it looks kind of clunky. Like the compositing is not very good. It kind of looks like
Hmm.
that's their style. Like the characters don't necessarily blend into the worlds that they're kind of
Yep.
set on top of. And it throws me off. But I think that if it's your main source of animation, like if you're mostly watching Chinese stuff, then you probably don't even notice. Um, so I mean, maybe if enough of that stuff gets produced, and if it trickles into other markets, and if they keep like they keep their talent in house, they don't let Japan or any other countries lure the top Chinese animators away, and
Mm.
they develop that culture over time. We may not be thinking of anime as equaling Japanese animation in the future.
Mm. Yeah, well, I do think that one of the pitfall of the Chinese animation right now is that they rely too much on the wuxia genre.
Yeah, that's definitely
So we,
true.
we we kind of like see the same variation like every single times. So I think the Legion of High benefit on that because it's not really about that era.
Yeah, it's set in the modern world.
Yeah.
Even though there's like supernatural, ultra fast, blink and you'll miss it action.
Mm-hmm.
It is a modern story.
Yep.
So that would be my other honorable mention, I guess. I've got a
All right, you
bunch, but
can.
we'll just pick those two.
All right. So shall we go into the top 15?
Alrighty.
All right. So my number 15 is Mirai.
Okay.
So Mirai is for me is like Hoshoda most crowded and personal film. It's set in a more related settings and small chaos family drama. That is a stark different from his more fantastical, like period work. But for me, it's like a perfect family-oriented feature that respect the child point of view, with all the mature sentiment behind it.
Hmm. I remember watching Mirai actually in theaters with Lenlo.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Nice.
I didn't. Yeah, I enjoyed the film, and I remember the reception to it being kind of lukewarm.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, I think this film is better than people are giving it credit for, and yet it has kind of slipped from my memory over time.
It it actually I think it's feel very funny because with the anime world we think that Mirai is like better than what we expected. We think of Mirai as a small film, but like in as the world they know most about Mirai out of all Hosoda films because this is the film that is nominated for the Oscar and stuff.
Right. I remember hearing about that. Um,
Yes.
and it is animation's thought of as children's entertainment primarily.
Yep.
In other parts of the world, and it probably is his most family-oriented film, I think.
Yep. 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 That's right.
Um, yeah,
So yeah, so it kind of like have like different reception from like it depend on who you ask.
yeah, yeah. I did like the film. I should rewatch it because I'm planning. There's a bunch of anime movies from the 2010s that I still haven't seen.
Hmm.
That I've been downloading actually.
Maybe with my
I mean,
yeah,
I didn't watch
maybe
them in
with my
time for this episode, so I'm kind of a fraud. But maybe I'll rewatch Mirai
Mhm.
as part of that experience.
Yep. yeah, maybe with my inclusion, it might push you to rewatch Mirai soon.
I mean, I think Hosoda's great, so I'm sure I'll rewatch it eventually. I remember the architecture of the house that family lives in being really awesome. It's like the
That's right.
coolest
That's
house
right.
ever.
And so you prefer Hosoda more than Shinkai?
Absolutely,
Just curious.
absolutely,
All
yes,
right. Well, I have the same sentiment though.
yeah. Yep.
All right. What is your 15?
Okay, number 15 for me would be "Ride Your Wave" by Masaaki Yuasa.
Yep.
I think this film kind of highlights where they were headed all along with their transition to flash animation, because their use of flash does not always look great. It that's okay because Yuasa has good storytelling capabilities, and he's a strong director. So their methods, the actual like meat and potatoes of the animation process, whatever it is, he can use it to create a good story. But the animation itself, the way it moves, it doesn't. They don't always pull it off, I don't think. But in Ride Your Wave, I think they did. The water animation is really excellent. You can tell that they had some prior experience with Lu Over the Wall. Ride Your Wave, I think, was the fulfillment of that movie's promise.
Yep.
There's some really cool use of flash animation too, like some shots that would be impossible using any other methods, live action or animation. I remember in particular, you remember how like people are setting off fireworks in that film? There's a fire hazard because of that. The second time, yeah. Well, they do it like at the beginning of the film as well, which is what causes the fire, where she meets the guy. But then at the end, it's like a different, or maybe it's the same group of hoodlums or whatever they are. You know, just like inconsiderate Japanese people, teens. I don't know what they're supposed to be. They're plotting in the restaurant where the young girl, what's her name? Can't remember the girl's name. The sister of the boy who dies. They're plotting to set off fireworks again, and she hears them through the dumbwaiter, like that little elevator where the food is lifted up.
Yep.
So the movie, like the camera, I suppose, goes from her perspective and into the dumbwaiter and all the way down that shaft, following the cord, and then the camera comes out of there and then shows the people plotting to set off the fireworks. So there's, I can't imagine that being animated any other way. I also think the romance between the two leads is really cute. It's really supportive. He promises to be there for her until she can ride her own wave. And of course that metaphor plays out in various ways over the course of the film. The supernatural element I was kind of mixed on, because it turns out the guy actually, his spirit is inhabiting the physical plane and he really can control water. So some of the ambiguity of like whether it was in her imagination or not is kind of stolen by that realization. Like this is actually real. And I don't think it goes across, it doesn't come across like perfectly, kind of takes over the story too during the climax when the gigantic ring of water is putting out the flames in the building. But it's okay. I still I like all the characters, and I think the romance it's really sweet. It's not very typical of anime. It's very I don't know. It's something you might see in like an indie film, an American indie film.
Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of point. Like especially the animation. Like whenever we have like the scene where one of the character like riding the wave, it's just look a lot of action in there. It's a lot of movement in there. I love it. And the direction is also good as well. I remember there's one scene where the main girl asks for the direction, and we follow in her, like turning left, turning right, from her point of view. And I think it's just absolutely stunning on that one.
Oh, that's when she's riding on her bike, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
That's the one. And I'm it have more emotional connect with me as well because it's a movie about grieving. So for the fantastical point, I agree with you that it isn't the best, but it's still like resonate with me very well on that one. But spoiler alerts, Riot Wave is not on my top 15.
All right.
So I have a chance to talk about more about this now.
Okay.
All right, so let's go through number 14.
Okay.
So my number 14 is A Letter to Momo.
I still have not seen this film.
You should because it's a children fantasy film that is very comparable with a Ghibli film in terms of qualities.
Yeah, I
It
need to
have
download it.
Yeah, the directors reportedly took 7 years to make it, and I think it shows because the visual is stunning down to the tiniest detail, especially to the amount of attention they paid to the body language and gestures. I felt like the character development of the main girl is refreshing as well. It begins with a light comedy, but through numerous adventures and mishaps, we slowly learn about her past and how she, opened herself up with the three yokai that is stay in her house. I think it's also like Mirai, a perfect children's stories. This one have like more depth, and it's overall it just have like a good quality for film. So I really recommend it.
Why are you sequestering all the children's films at the bottom of your list, man? Why they got to be at the bottom?
All right, let just scroll down if I have my. All right, let's just back on that point. I'm not intentionally put them on the bottom of my list at all. The fact that they appear in my top 15 list is say something about their quality already.
Okay. Well, I've been downloading some 2010s films to watch that I haven't seen, like Bakemono no Ko, the one Hosoda film that I haven't seen.
Yep. The Boy and the Beast.
Into the Forest of Firefly Lights. I haven't seen that.
Yep. That is good one as well.
What else? You Are Delicious, the children's dinosaur, the children's dinosaur film from the early 2010s. Got that one. So I need to add.
You Are Delicious.
Yeah, it's called You Are Delicious.
Right.
The Japanese title is Omae Umaso Dana.
Yeah, well, I think I have never heard of that one. I think you mentioned it to me once before.
Yeah, I think I did, and you were like, "What? That film looks like it's for babies," or something like that.
Yeah, little dinosaur.
No, it's not like The Land Before Time, where it's like a little it's like a little child dinosaur who children are clearly supposed to project onto. I think it's a little different from that, but I won't know until I watch it. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is because A Letter to Momo is certainly a film that I need to add to that list. So
please.
Since I've been watching so many of these films in preparation for this, this list, this podcast episode, I plan on keeping that habit going, like watching perhaps 10 more films from this time period that I haven't seen while I'm still on this kick. So I'll get that watched.
I think that's like one of the point of which we want to make by doing this list. So like it gives us the motivation to watch and rewatch stuff that that we've been meaning to do for a while.
Right. All right. Well, shall I do my number 14? I guess.
Yeah. Please.
All right. It is Dokusei by Shoko Nakamura, who is a female director, most notable perhaps for her association with Ikuhara, her work on Penguin Drum. She was like a big part of that series. So she kept the gay vibes going, I guess, with this film, which is about a romantic relationship between two high school boys. It has a bit of a sketchy quality to it, the art style, which I like. The the character animation is also very good, probably because the film feels sketchy. Like it doesn't hew too closely to the design sheets. So if the film calls for like really expressive running, for example, where someone's chasing someone else, their limbs are like swinging wildly back and forth. If someone is singing, they'll be swaying, to the music, and if there's guitar playing, it'll be very expressive. So that was nice. Has a very loose style. Backgrounds are watercolor, which is a touch that I always enjoy seeing. I don't know if they were actually watercolor paintings. The odds are it was like digitally simulated watercolor effects, but that's, you take what you can get in the era of computers. It has a seasonal motif. It goes from fall to winter to spring. I think those are the three that it covers in that order, although that could be completely wrong. But the reason that I like that structure, that layout, is because the boys, feelings, their relationship goes through seasons as well. Like there are parts of the film where they're particularly close to one another and their feelings are stronger, and then there may be parts where they get into a disagreement or there's an insecurity that one of them has to deal with, and then maybe they'll take a break from seeing one another. So the changing of the seasons is reflected in their relationship and vice versa. And I also think the dialogue is way better than average for anime. Not the script necessarily, but the performance of the dialogue. Like the way that characters will kind of, use filler words like and things like that. The way that they search for their words as the seiyuu are giving their performances is highly authentic. You don't often hear that. Yeah. Although I will say that, like Hikaru specifically, the blonde boy, I don't know if you remember the two main characters in this film. The blonde one, his dialogue is a little bit too heavily stylized, I feel. He kind of babbles from time to time. Right. But in general, I really like the I don't know what you would call it, like cinema verite. Trying to mimic real people's speech patterns was an interesting touch.
Mm-hmm. I remember watching Dokusei like a few years ago, and I remember really liking it because it have like you said, a really loose style, but stylish as well. And I just feel like the way that the two of them come together, get to know each other, and through through a passage of time where we see like how that relationship growing up, it just feels so authentic. I just have one complaint, and this is just like a minor quibble for me. That is just too short. I want more of this.
Yeah, it is very short.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's just like around an hour clock.
Yeah, I think it's exactly an hour long.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they get 4 seasons in. Like the little title cards that are injected throughout the film. I think there's only 3.
I think we just see like 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that feels kind of weird to create that seasonal theme to run throughout your anime film, and then you only pay off 3 out of 4.
Yeah, well,
but they do a good enough job with the actual story of their relationship, I think. I mean, it is hindered a little bit by the short length, because maybe there's the getting to know you phase between the two of them is not long enough for the breaking apart to feel sufficiently dramatic. It's not a movie that really connects to me or speaks to me. But I do like a lot of things about it.
Yeah. All right. So up to my number 13, and I know that you will put this one even down to your list more than me. Number 13. My number 13 is Makia. For me, it's Makia is writer Mari Okada's at her most accomplished. So it deals with many heavy questions like about family, love, living, finding your own place in the world. and they have very stunning act and background designs. The I think the team developed with the main team developed between the relationship between a mother and a child, and how that like how that change over time. It's not a common subject matter at all, and I really like it. Um, yeah, for me, it's just the movie with very big themes, and some of them aren't it just have a lot of its place, but like all the time it just have I it just the visual is just so nice that I always want to look at it.
Yeah, it's a very pretty film. I
It's
I
a pretty
private
film for
messaged you
sure.
saying that it might be the prettiest anime film ever made. Of course, your response was that no, that was Children of the Sea,
Yeah.
which may be true. I think Children of the Sea might be the most technically accomplished anime film that has ever been made. Personally, I think Maquia is the nicest looking, at least in terms of its scenery.
It had a very unusual setting as well.
It does, and man, I mean, I did put Maquia on my list, so I don't know if I'm supposed to
Yep.
talk about it now or later, but I'll at
Oh,
the very least I'll say this: I
yep.
feel like Maquia should have been a television series instead of a film.
It had all the feeling of like a 12 episode TV series.
Man,
Like all the theme is addressed.
I'm thinking 50 because
All right.
it is like it's a medieval fantasy, and the world is so, at least visually, it's so fully realized, and yet the plot, we hardly know anything about the nation where it takes place, or the rival countries that eventually declare war on them,
Yep.
or we lose track of some characters
Yep.
during the story and the script. Like some characters just disappear and then pop back in whenever
It,
it's a little frustrating. Um, and I feel like it could have the story and and everything else about the film might have been more suited to long form, TV format.
yeah. Even like to the main girls. The first few scene of her in her world, it's just so well accomplished.
I
Like
know.
I would want to see the whole season just setting on that settings.
Yeah. It would have been like, yeah. If you have, let's say, for example, a 50 episode TV anime would be impossible to green light in today's industry, I guess. But let's say you manage to get two cores and you get 26 episodes. Like you set the first 2 or 3 in Eorf, the
Yep.
place where they live, and that would just be beautiful. Like the end of episode 2 or midway through episode 3, that's when she gets taken away on the Renato,
Yep.
on the dragon, and then from there you open up the story a little bit, but instead, the that happened way faster than I would have liked.
Yeah. Well, I still really uh appreciate that it's appear in the like in the feature film format. So we get a chance to see the story, because the whole focus, I think the main focus is about the relationship between her and her child, and her child growing up, and she's not growing up at all, and all that perspective change and all the dynamic change. I think that also is really on point.
Yeah, the themes of
It's
motherhood. I wonder if Okada had a baby. I wonder what prompted her
uh
to make Makia.
yeah, from what I know though, I'm not sure. I don't think she has, but
Yeah.
don't count me on this.
Well, I mean, she had a pretty messed up childhood, so I don't know if kids are something she would want. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to her.
Yeah. And for me, Myra Okada is kind of hit or miss on me. So like many of these characters, many of her characters are unlikable. Many of her stories are raw, but also very emotional, manipulative. So this So I always feel like like I really love this story or I hate this story. So Makia is like within my the former for me.
All right. Well, I'll do my number 13, I guess.
Yep.
And that is Lupin the Third, Jigen Daisuke's Gravestone.
Wow.
This is the first of 3 films in the Lupin universe, directed by Takeshi Koike
Yep.
of Redline fame.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually follow. We were just talking about Mario Kata. They follow her Lupin TV anime.
Yep.
Wait,
Is that
no, it wasn't
is that
Mario
she
Kata. It was
writing?
directed by Saya Yamamoto. Did Okada
Yep.
write it? I think she did.
Maybe not sure on that though.
Okay. Well, if I'm wrong, then just chalk it
Yep.
up to journalistic indiscretion. I really, of the 3 Lupin the Third films that were directed by Koike, one focusing on Jigen, one on Fujiko, and one on Sword Man, whose name I'm blanking on, embarrassingly. I mean, he's not in Jigen Daisuke's Gravestone. He doesn't even make an appearance.
Yep.
Goemon is his name.
Goemon. Yep.
This is the one I like the most, Jigen Daisuke's Gravestone. It's super stylish. It takes all the best parts of a woman called Fujiko Mine art style and ditches all the worst parts and throws it into a movie. And that's awesome. First of all, the film's stylish in more ways than just that, though. Like, there's a lot of cool gadgets. There's jewel heists. There's stories about political corruption. There is a villain who dresses in a white suit and snipes people by plugging his eye into a remote device that like can see all the security footage in the city where he works and kills people. There's like really high tech stuff like that. He's basically a cyborg. And there's also a very weird scene with Fujiko in a glass box, nude, running away from a robot in a gimp suit, while a bunch of rich and wealthy politicians, I suppose, are sitting at like on velvet chairs and watching. It's very weird.
Say that again. So she nude in a glass box.
She's nude. She's trapped in a glass case, and she's running from a giant robot in a gimp suit. It's very strange, but it ties into the theme of political corruption that's running through the movie, because these are all like wealthy, powerful men who, don't care about anybody except themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so what better way to illustrate that than with them observing this disgusting ritual?
Oh, that's the ritual.
Yeah, it's a very that part of the film's very strange, but I enjoy it, just for how twisted it is. And then she, of course, she breaks out and teams up with Lupin, and then they are able to get the better of everybody. And then she even pulls one over on him right before the movie ends, because she's always one step ahead of him. The film's just very stylish, basically. And this entry on my list, I guess, could stand in for any of the 3 films in that trilogy, although I do think this one's the best. And then the Fujiko Mine's Lie film is also very good. And Goemon's Blood Spray is probably the least of the 3, in my opinion, but even that one has a really cool villain that Goemon has to defeat.
Yeah, I meant to watch the 3 for a while now, so thank you to put that into my attention again. I actually, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna just then merge the 3 together, since they are like the same style, the same like focus on the different characters of the main gang.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, this one was first. I'm not sure. I can't remember, actually, if there's continuity between the 3 of them. I think there's a very loose, overarching story that you don't even really need to know. I think you can just watch any of them.
Yeah. But it had like the same style
Yeah,
as the series, right? Mine
sort
Fujiko one.
of. I mean, the character designs are definitely different, but it does take the kind of the thick brushstrokes, that general concept, and the characters have the same general, I think, like features. They look more adult than a lot of other Lupin series. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely Koike's vision. He didn't just take Yamamoto's designs and be like, I'm doing the exact same thing. He mixed it up a bit, but I think the same spirit runs through them.
Yep. Cool. And consider like how the original series is like number 2 on my anime of that year. I'm really looking forward to this.
All right.
Alright, so let's go to my number 12, which is The Case of Hana Analyst.
Okay, I just downloaded that.
Alright, it's a prequel story to my beloved live action Hana Analyst, and it had everything that I love from the live action films. It had the likable characters, it had the focus on their relationship, and for this one, it used a rotoscope. So that's make it look and feel more like action movies than anime. And for me, it is a film that endlessly fun. It have great dialogue, great characters, and it's a film that celebrates the youthfulness of how it's like to feel young and enjoy the present moment of your life.
That's weird because I mean it's the murder case of Hana and Alice, right? The
Well,
word
that's
murder is
the
in the title.
yeah, that's the original title. I think like the title now just a case of Hana and Alice, and there's no murder whatsoever in there.
Well, where does the murder come from? Was that the title of the live action, or?
No. Murder is come from for the story. Actually, like one of the character disappeared, and they thought that was a murder. So like they trying to investigate.
I see. Yeah, I thought there was a mystery aspect to it.
Yeah, there is. But yeah, it's more about the two characters and how they come together. So I think it's a really nice feel to it, and it feel different than most of your anime out there. Like the dialogue is different, the look is different, and for the even the direction, like the shot angle are different as well. So yeah, it's a nice breeze of fresh air in the anime medium. So give this a watch sometime. You don't need the knowledge of the original at all.
I downloaded
I
both.
watched I watched it before I watched the live action film. So, and I already like, enjoy the characters a lot.
Well, I haven't watched a live action film in a long time, so I'm gonna watch that first. So just as a way of breaking myself out of this cartoon vortex that I've been sucked into.
All right.
I like going in like release order when I watch stuff.
That work as well. For this one, the view of rotoscope, you can sometimes you can see some of it limitations. So like I remember like in a scene where one of the main character fall from her second story house, and she when she land, you don't see the impact at all. So there is some limitation to that, but other than that, though it just creates like a very unique style, not very different from Father of Evil's style.
Okay. Well, I liked Flowers of Evil. I'm fine
You
with
like the animation?
Yeah, I like the art style. I like the decision.
All right.
Yeah, it kind of increased the creepiness factor,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
important
yeah.
for that story.
Yeah, so this one is different. It doesn't like make you feel a creepiness or uncomfortable. It doesn't look dark at all.
Well, guess there's no way to find out how I'll like it other than to watch it.
Yeah, true. Give it a watch. See if you like it or not.
All right. I'm going to do my number 12. It is Patema Inverted by Yasuhiro Yoshiura. So I can't remember if it was during this recording or
Yep.
not, or before it, but you asked me if I liked Hosoda more than Shinkai, and I
Mm-hmm.
said yes, of course. But to me, there's really no comparison between the two. I think Hosoda is on a completely different. He's on a different planet from Shinkai. I think the closer comparison is Yoshiura to Shinkai,
Alright.
and I think Yoshiura is probably the better Shinkai, um, because they both make stories about, you know, boys and girls falling in love with supernatural stuff going on in the background. I
Yep.
mean, Hosoda did his fair share of that as well, but he's just way too accomplished to be thrown into that conversation.
Wow. All right.
Yoshiura, though, I just found out recently that he has a new film coming out this year, next year, sometime. Who knows what's going on with COVID? Um, the reason I'm excited for that film is because Time of E was good, Pale Cocoon was good, and Patema
Yep.
Inverted. This film was also good. It was mostly the concept of the film that I really loved, the inverted gravity, and the way that you get from the quote unquote real world to the inverted world, the way that like there's like a little tunnel or a shaft between the
Mm-hmm.
two, the way that you traverse that shaft, and the way that two people can like counterbalance each other's gravity by holding on to each other, and how you explore the terrain by taking advantage of that technique, and also the city in the clouds, like the lost city
Mm-hmm.
that they go to during like I guess the end of the second act of the film was really cool. Like the one they're flying up through the sky and you see a bunch of stars, and you slowly realize as the camera holds on that shot, those aren't stars, those are lights. And then they get up there to that city and make all those discoveries about the true nature of the world. The film is always like it takes a concept that's already pretty ambitious in terms of sci-fi, and it continually adds on to it in a way that feels very like spherical. It isn't just throwing stuff onto it just to increase its size. It's like revealing itself
Mm-hmm.
over the course of the movie's runtime. So I thought that was really
Yep.
neat. Characters are pretty good. You know, they're likable, but they're not great. Story, pretty good. You know, they're overthrowing the evil, crazy religious nut job who's oppressing everyone. It's not great, but it's serviceable enough, and so are all the people in the film. It's mostly the concept I like. It's very good.
Yep. We actually did this together in one of our previous podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I don't remember like what the other movies that we do together with this one. What I
A
find,
Whisker Away, maybe.
yeah, I think so. Yes. What I found, or maybe Her Blue Sky, like one of the two.
Her Blue Sky was with Lupin the Third, the First, the CG one.
Yeah. True. So what I find the most impressive of Patema Inverted is the direction of it, because like the two of them have their opposite plans. So sometimes it will, like the camera will move like 90 degrees, and
Right.
it just looked great. It just looked like cinematically great, and it also look like ambitious as heck. And
Yeah.
we follow the each other perspective as well. So that's where you change the perspective, and it just like further expand the world building. So I really I am a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Yoshiura's thing, is simulating camera movements
Yep.
in like 3D space. I think he was probably the inspiration for a lot of more like bigger name directors to start incorporating small amounts of that into their own films, as we've seen over like the second half of this decade that we're talking about. You get a little bit of that in Hosoda's films. You get a little bit of that in Shinkai's films. I think Yoshiro was. I'm glad he's making another film, because if he didn't, his name may have started to disappear from people's memories, and I don't think it should.
Yeah. The new film that he gonna make is the name is Sing a Bit of Harmony.
Yep.
The English title. Supposedly come out at the end of this year, so finger crossed for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whenever it comes out, I'll be excited to watch it. We'll see.
Yeah, I have another of his film will appear later on my list, so I will talk more about his style then.
All right. Well, speaking of which, what is your number? Are we up to your number 11 at this point?
Yeah, we're up to number 11. So my number 11 is the one that we also did in the postcard before, Giovanni Iceland.
We didn't do Giovanni's Island for the podcast, I don't think.
No, we did. No, we didn't.
You and I just talked about it together.
Jeez, but yeah, we did we did watch it at the same time, so
Yeah.
I think that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, it have a heartfelt story of water and bonding from different cultures. Uh, it can go a bit heavy-handed at times, but for me, it all pays off emotionally. And for me, the scene where the kids or the kid in Japan and Russia just turn singing in each other language is like one of favorite moment. It's just so satisfying.
Yeah. I watched the film just a few days ago. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it is a well intentioned. It's also the original film. So, it and the name of the title is inspired from a night of the Galactic Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
So it have like a lot of like it ambitious a lot of thing going on, but I think it is executed mostly well. For me, the only weak part is the ending, where the adult of the protagonist come back to the island, find out about like her the Russian girl had passed away and stuff. I just think that is a bit too convenient.
What?
of
You
the
didn't
story.
like that part? That's one of the best parts of the film.
I don't like the panel because like we get through all the difficult time, and then we just find out that like when he get old, it just like a big time, a really big time gap for me. And even like the girl, uh uh there was the girl before, the Japanese girl, and supposedly she survived as well, and she came back there. It just feel I feel the disconnection from that story, from to the main storyline.
All right.
You don't look convinced. You don't sound convincing.
No, not at all. I just watched it, and I love the ending. It's great. Him talking
And-
with Tanya's granddaughter.
Yep.
That's so moving.
All right. All right.
Yeah. I mean,
Alright,
I
what
think
is that?
I think after, everything that happens to him, he deserves a little bit of closure.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. I mean, the whole reason he returns to the island is so that he can have a 50th. He can be conferred his elementary school diploma on the 50th anniversary of when he should have graduated, or whatever anniversry it is. I think
that's a nice
I think that's a really cute idea. I mean, cute maybe isn't the right word. It's nice that he was able to do that, and he was able to see his friends from so long ago that he suffered through those difficult times with.
Yeah, and some sort of closure as well.
Yeah, because he probably remembered Tanya for his entire life. He probably thought about her often.
Mhm.
And he got to see what remained of her, I guess, her legacy. And he passed on his copy of A Night on the Galactic Railroad to her.
Yep.
I thought that
Right.
was nice. What was your number
Yep,
12
so-
again? I'm writing them down.
All right, my number 12 is the case of Hana and Analyst.
That's right. Hana and
I'm still keeping track with yours
Alice.
as well.
Okay. Should I do my number 11?
Yeah, please.
Okay. It's Redline.
All right.
This film, I mean, we're already 50 minutes in, and we're not even 33% of the way done with our list. So I'm gonna start speeding up a little bit. Redline is on this list for me because it just looks cool as hell.
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched it just a few days ago, and like the ending is very kind of
Abrupted?
anticlimactic. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
abrupt. He and Sonoshi, after like literal minutes of going when like reality is warping around them and the car is going 5 quintillion miles an hour. They cross they're like flung from their car and they cross the finish line together, and then they like embrace in a moment frozen in time as the camera pans around them and they kiss, and then the film ends. Like
Mm-hmm.
you created all these other interesting characters, like all the drivers, and there's no little epilogue to show. I think they would have been really cool to have a little epilogue where the other driver, it's like, where are they now? You know, um, a last bow before the curtain closes for each
Yep.
of them. And also the whole film with like the government of Robo World trying to kill all the racers and stuff. Like it just felt a little superfluous. Like just give me cool races and flesh out JP and Sonoshi's relationship a little more. It didn't feel like
I
there was a genuine connection between the two of them, in my opinion.
yeah. Well,
But
I what? Yeah.
go ahead.
Go on. Sorry. Go on. Go on. Go on.
I mean, all
Finish
I
your
was going to
thought
say
first.
was that the film looked really cool in spite of all of its quote unquote problems. I mean, the film's still badass. The dub is also pretty good. I watched it dubbed this time.
Hmm.
And I mean, the voices don't always sync with the lips, and there are attempts made to make the voices sync with the lips that don't go over very well. But I think the characters, the actors inhabit their characters pretty effectively.
Yep.
It's just a cool looking film. It's really awesome. Koike is God.
All right. I watched it just a few days ago in preparation for this, and for me, it just a rush up at adrenaline. It just so everything. It just put up to 11. And I agree with you that the relationship between GP and Sonoshi is a bit just there. Especially seeing the flashback. You remember like what inspired GP to do the race or to even ride all
Yeah,
is
it's because he saw her.
because he saw her. But it's like what time before like did he even like be like a professional driver at that point of time?
No, he wasn't.
So and that must mean that Sonoshi is really old. He's like 40 years old now, right? It
I
just
don't know. Yeah, that did occur to me as I was watching. But I think she was very young. No, it's not as though she was already an adult when he saw her
mm,
racing and when he was inspired by her. She was young, um, because she'd been training all her life. Like that's why she said, "I'm different from all of you. I'm not
yep.
like
Mm,
I'm gonna make
mm,
it to Redline." This was something she'd be doing probably since she was a young child.
yep. Yep. Well, and for me, just on the plot, on these characters, are just are just there for the main race, and what a race! It just it's so so stylish, highly stylized. So a lot of action, a lot of movement, but like all the development there, it just it just put randomly there just for the sake of the story.
Yeah, all the stuff with Robo World and their president being like, there's probably some political commentary in there. I mean,
Yep.
one of his generals looked like Captain America.
Yeah,
he,
yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that stuff just put me to sleep. To be honest, like I felt myself getting sleepy during those moments. I was just like, please get back to the race. Um, but 7 years hand drawn, as the
Wow.
saying goes, will
Mhm.
get you a long way in spite of some kind of thin story elements.
Hmm. All right. Um, The reason that I don't put red lines into the list is because for my list I have another style over substance films, another like adrenaline rush
Adrenaline
films
Rush.
that,
Yeah.
yep, that I would prefer more than red lines, and you will hear about that later. On
Okay.
to our top 10.
Right. So we're there now. What's your number 10?
Well, hold on. So we are 55 minutes into there. Now we just get into the top 10.
Yeah, we gotta hurry it up.
All right. So my number 10 is A Silent Voice.
All right.
For me, it have like an unusual but very raw subject matters, dealing with bullying and how to cope with that. It have a multi-dimensional characters and a top-notch production from Giovanni. But it's a powerful movie for sure. But it's for me it's the reason it's not in any place higher is because it's bogged down by its melodrama a bit too much.
Yeah, I remember thinking that it was highly dramatic when I watched it. In fact, to the point that it really hadn't earned. Um, I don't know. I just felt like the movie wasn't able to carry its own story, just because
Yeah.
of the way that it presented it.
I heard that the manga is like so much better because it have more time to flesh out all these all these side characters.
Yeah.
So I think I will give the manga a watch instead of rewatching this one.
I've had the Silent Voice manga downloaded on my computer for a long time, and I still have not gotten around to it. Probably because I'm trapped in Spirit Circle hell. But
Ah,
I won't be forever.
what are you talking about? We're gonna finish that one next week. Next podcast for sure.
Yeah, that's the plan.
All right. Yep. I think we can move on to your number 10.
Okay, I guess we're going fast.
Yep.
So my number 10, you will be surprised to hear, is The Night is Short, Walk On Girl by
Wow.
Masaki Yuasa.
Yep.
I've rewatched all of these films. Actually, I realized just now that I didn't rewatch Patema Inverted. The other 14 I did, plus a couple others. But I did rewatch The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. It wasn't very long ago, just days ago. And I was surprised that I did not enjoy it nearly as much as I did the first time. It felt to me like this. It felt to me like a second season of the Tatami Galaxy stuffed into a film, and the links between all of the different stories, like the drinking contest and the used book fair, and the whole thing with the guerrilla theater performances, and then everyone in the city catching a cold. All these different stories, I mean, they felt very divorced from one another, even though they played back to back so quickly, and even though there were links between them. I didn't feel like the links were very substantial. For example, there is a line of dialogue which kind of reads like a throwaway line in the drinking contest story, where, what's the guy's name? Todo-san, the guy who collects pictures of, erotic pictures of like girls in their underwear or whatever. He says, "Oh, there was a tornado that came down and it destroyed my koi pond." He just mentions this to Senpai, the main male character, in passing, and then much later in the movie, when Don Underwear is up on stage doing his performance, singing his heart out to the guy who was dressed in drag when he fell in love with him. A tornado with koi fish circling around it descends and drops a koi fish onto his head and the head of the redheaded girl, and they fall in love, paying off the throwaway line from earlier in the film about and of course koi means love in Japanese, so when the koi fish from the tornado fall on their heads, they fall in koi with each other.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
like it's very clever, ha ha ha, but I don't feel much of an actual connection between the stories. And the fact that it's all supposed to happen in one night, I mean, it's just too much. Like, it just feels overstuffed.
Yeah, well, I will just say that I think it's the intention that like everything that happened right there, it just happened in one night.
Yeah, it is the intention, and it makes it a little difficult to believe. I mean, I know that it's a film that's
Yep.
taking place in a heightened version of reality.
Yep.
It's definitely written with that in mind and directed with that in mind. But I still felt as though like the film was behind me, like with a whip, like hurry up, run faster, hurry, go faster, faster, work your brain cells faster so you can keep up with my story.
Are you talking about Johnny?
What's that?
Little Johnny.
Little Journey.
Johnny, the cowboy.
Oh, Johnny. Yeah, that's another thing that I didn't. Yeah, he's got the whip. What the thing with Johnny felt kind of stapled to the end of this movie. It was very weird how the film went there after the end of like the cold story where everyone comes down with the an illness. All of a sudden, we're thrown into Senpai's like internal world, and Johnny is trying to bang down the doors, and then somehow the raven-haired maiden is like inside his mental universe, but it's actually her and not just his imagination of her. I was just lost during that part. I didn't feel like that transition was particularly good. I'm just complaining about this film, even though it's my 10th favorite anime film of the decade.
Nah, that is alright.
But I mean, I love the guerrilla theater scenes in this movie so much. They're so funny, and it makes me really excited that the next movie that Yuasa is directing is going to be a musical.
Alright, that's a good. Alright, so let me just get on quickly on my number 9 then. My number 9 is Promare.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Yeah, for me it's like it's trigger at its best. It's a production that marries the studio studied production style with its like wacky story that is fun enough to follow. And for me, it is the movie that best included the CG and the hand draw part. It is style over substance for sure, but it's also very entertaining and very fun to follow from start to finish.
I remember watching Promare. I also saw that in theaters with Lenlo, and I wasn't really a fan. I didn't like it very much.
All right, question for you though. What movies that you watch with Lenlo in the theater that you like? So maybe it's
Mirai.
maybe it's Lenlo.
I liked Mirai.
Alright,
We saw Lou Over the Wall together. I liked that film. I watched Weathering with You with him, and I didn't like that film at all. Then there was Promare, or Promare, however you say it, and there was another one. I can't remember what the other one was.
Something from that time. Let's see. Maybe Ride Your Wave.
It wasn't Ride Your Wave. I can't remember what it was.
Children of the Seas.
Nope. I didn't get to see that in theaters, even though I really should have. I think Children of the Sea came to theaters around COVID time in America. Maybe it was a little bit before that, actually. I don't know.
Right. Maybe Makia.
Nope. I don't remember what it was.
All right. Let's just move on.
Do you have anything else to say about Promare or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I just think it is a style of a substance. So just enjoy. Just shut down your brain and enjoy it to the fullest.
I'm really not a fan of those kinds of movies, except for Redline, I guess. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are other exceptions as well, but for whatever reason, I wasn't even really that big on the art style. Like it was.
I really like the art style.
I was more intrigued by it than I liked it. I was just like seeing all the interesting stuff they were doing with these geometric shapes, and the scenes they were able to create with them, because it has a very inventive 3D graphical style. But I was just like stroking my chin and pondering. Yes, this is interesting. I wonder how this technology will impact anime in the future. Yes. I wasn't like getting into it.
All right, so let's move on to your number 9. You said it will be a musical.
No, Yuasa's next film is going to be a musical. Like the
Oh,
film
right.
that's currently in production is going to be a musical. That's why I'm interested in it, because the guerrilla theater scenes. I mean, if you just take the guerrilla theater plot from Night of Short Walk On Girl and expand that to be a full movie, absolute masterpiece, #1 film of the decade. I also really liked the drinking party stuff, but as the movie went on, it started to lose me a little. But whatever.
All right, go on.
My number 9 film is Your Name by Makoto Shinkai.
All right.
It's, I think, the only film I've seen of his that I've really enjoyed. I remember kind of liking 5 centimeters per second when I saw it, like, I don't know, probably 13, 12 years ago at this point. It's been a long time. It was one of the first. Anyway, whatever. Your Name. It's just a good, like, teen romance film, with a little supernatural body swap element to it. You know, everything you would expect those characters to do when they switch places, like the groping, and then the weird behavior, and their friends commenting on it, and writing, like writing each other notes, and I can't remember if they end up texting each other. I think they do.
They do. They actually try to write notes to each other. Oh no, yeah. They wrote text to each other.
They do. They write notes to each other at first. Like the first clue that we get as the audience is like, he's written "Who are you?" in her notebook or something like that.
Yeah.
But then they do eventually send texts to each other, and for some reason the texts disappear after she dies in her timeline. That was really weird. Like, why would the digital ones and zeros in his phone be impacted by that?
For dramatic
effect.
Much.
Yeah, pretty much. And I do feel as though there's a bit of an issue this film with, like, its logical consistency. When I was watching the film, and I don't have specifics, because as I was watching the film, like, I kept getting these little nagging sensations in the back of my head, like, this doesn't feel as though it would really work this way. But I just kind of shut those voices out, because, I mean, there's dimension hopping and time travel and body swapping and stuff. So you're not really meant to look too far into it. It's just a really pretty looking...
Like Promare.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, this is my Promare. Your Name is my Promare. I really like the way that the red thread of fate motif was worked into the film. I thought that gave a nice visual through line to some of the climactic moments. And my favorite part of the film has to be the hybrid style that kicks in after Taki drinks her rice wine, the sake that's been fermenting in that little cave. It's like a paint and pastel kind of hybrid looking thing as he's kind of falling through nothingness and grasping at that red thread, and he's also seeing images from her life. Really beautiful stuff. So it's not the best story, but very likable characters, very fun movie. Definitely needed a fun movie during my marathon of all these, like, tear jerkers that I'm gonna get into further down the list.
All right, I think it's time for me to reveal my number 8.
Okay.
And that is Your Name as well. So
Right.
I will talk more about that. I don't think it deserves to be, like the one anime that break out. So like everyone know it because, like it may be aside from Attack on Titan and Ghibli films, the one movies that like all these non-anime fans know about. And it's also one of these films that I have rewatched a lot. I think I rewatched it like 3-4 times already.
Wow.
With like different group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember all the detail of it, and even though that I'm not that fan of the story, it have its way into my memory in my head now. For me, like the three part of it, they have like three distinctive parts. Like the first one is the body swapping, and then the second one is the mystery to find out where to find out about the event, and the third one is like the love story that like Shinkai always love to do. For me, like all the parts are compelling on this all, but it not come together very well, and so it create like the effect where it's shifting, like the tone is very inconsistent in the three parts altogether, and just but I still enjoy the two characters. I enjoy the all each individual part very well, and I think this is Shinkai where he are most ambitious, and it's messy as heck as well, but you know as a whole I think it still work out fine.
All right.
All
good,
right, so
good job, Shinkai. You did it. You made the movie you were meant to make. Now you can go back to making just ridiculous stuff for the rest of your life.
All right, what is your number 8 then?
So you already had a Naoko Yamada film, A Silent Voice. My Yamada entry on this list is K-On! The movie.
Yep.
I really like this film a lot. It makes me smile. I think it's really nice that the girls during their trip, and in fact I think like the point of the movie basically is for them to find inspiration to write this song for Azusa, who they're about to leave behind.
All right.
I think that's really nice.
I will throw criticism to you about the movie. So go on.
Okay.
Finish your thought and then.
I think the tribute song that they write at the end is like, in order for it to pack the punch that it's supposed to, you do need some prior knowledge. You need to have seen K-On! So the film doesn't entirely stand by itself, but if you want to watch this film, it will. The characters will still charm you. It'll still work, but you won't get that teary-eyed moment where they sing to her at the end. I think the lighting in this film is really superb. It's some of the best that I've seen in anime. I especially remember the airport scenes right before they fly off to England. The way that the light coming in through the windows is totally blown out, and then everyone you can, if when they're shot from the back, you can see that it's darkened, and then just on the rims of their outlines, their character designs, it's illuminated. It really looks really pleasing. It has a very cinematic look to it, I think, as a result of the lighting in many other parts of the film as well. And I think it's fun. I think it's a fun movie. There's a lot of good humor. I really like the scene where they perform at the sushi restaurant. The only reason they go in there is because they want to get sushi, and then they end up getting roped into a performance. They don't get the sushi, and then they're kicked out. And as a result, one of the girls develops a fear of things that go around, like things that rotate, like the conveyor belt sushi in the restaurant. So every time she sees something that rotates or revolves during the rest of the film, she's like, I have a bad feeling about this. It's just fun. It's a fun movie, and it has that little emotional twist at the end to kind of make it a complete package. So I really enjoy it.
All right. This girl can make up their mind about where to go, so that they have to. I think they have to rely on the turtle pet to choose it. Or is that fish or?
Their turtle.
Remember?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the turtle. Oh my God! Is it like they move? They're actually traveling overseas, and like they just give all the decision to a total.
Yeah. You got a
All
problem with
right,
that?
I know. But yeah, the whole, like in serious, the whole movie is fun, and I don't remember much of the lighting, but I remember like the direction. I remember there one scene where's the youngest one. What's her name?
Azusa.
Azusa, like when they are in the hotel in London, and Azusa just like she still half asleep, and she come from her room looking for Yui,
And they keep
and
going in and out
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
doors. Yeah.
yep, yep,
That's
and
pretty
oh
funny.
my God, yeah, and I think it's just like in one cut where we see like her still half asleep, looking around, don't see Yui, and then see girl, and then we see a shot of Yui coming back from the house, and we see like that in circle. It just so good,
Yeah.
and I like the fact that Kaon, unlike any other like Kyuga doing cute thing, doesn't really like exaggerate. It keep things like small and simple. And I think that the decision that make them stand apart from the other peers.
I think there's a lot of cute girl anime that keeps things small and simple. I mean, I feel like that's
Well,
kind of the basis of the genre almost.
yeah, but not as good as this one. That not as expert at
Ah,
K-On.
I
And I
see.
think they are all inspired by K-On as well.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yes. I mean, there were plenty of cute girl anime being made before K-On. Um, there were a bunch.
Mm.
Azumanga Daioh, um, Ichigo Mashumaru,
Mm-hmm.
Kamichu, um, uh, Gakuen Utopia Manabi Straight. There's I could go on probably, but I would start to stutter a lot more if I had to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think K-On is the big one. Yeah, for sure.
All right, good
So what's
choice there.
what's your number 7?
All right, my number seven is the other one that Yoshiura had directed, Time of Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the movie approach. It delved into the heart of racism by having a character just sit in the cafe and just talk and learn about each other. I think that's a really marvel ideas to begin with, and some of the racism and like the difference between robot and person are explore, and and the perspective from the person to the robot I explore as well. So I think it's a really well grounded um, with a big idea in there. Um, the direction is a bit weird out. Like sometimes you can see shot of just doesn't belong there. It just feels strange to me. And there are some cliffhangers that really doesn't amount to much. Have
Yeah,
you
that's
rewatched Time of Eve? On this time you rewatch everything there.
I haven't rewatched Time of Eve, no. But
Mm,
I
yeah.
assume that the reason for the weird cliffhangers that don't really go much of anywhere is because the movie is adapted from OVAs.
Right. Right.
Originally, it was broken up into 6 OVAs or ONAs.
Mm,
This was one of the original ONAs, I think.
yep.
It debuted online.
Mm,
So when they compiled it into a film, it they're taking a bunch of different stories and threading them together, and it's not
mm,
going to be a
mm.
perfect process.
Yeah. 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 It just feel a bit doesn't belong to the whole story.
Hmm.
Only cliffhangers. But all in all, I really have a good time. I really like the world that they set up. I like the cafe, and I just love to see more. I hope. I don't think that there gonna be more of this in the future, but I still hope that maybe Yoshio's gonna revisit this sometime soon.
He could. I mean, if his next film makes him into like a Shinkai superstar, then maybe he'll be like, now I have all the corporate money and funding in the world, and I'm just gonna go back and make more Time of Eve. I can do whatever I want now.
Hopefully that's the case. Well, I'm down for the next Your Name. Even.
Yeah. I mean, we already got it with Weathering with You, and what a film it was. I should probably actually rewatch that film and see if it's like 5 years from now maybe, and see if it's really as
home up
as stupid as I remember it being.
All right, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is From Up on Poppy Hill by Goro Miyazaki.
Right.
It's a very sincere movie, which I really like. It's a coming-of-age story. It's about love, family, camaraderie, tradition, cooperation. It does have a very traditional feel to it. I think he was probably trying to be his dad when he made this movie a little bit. That's why it came across the way it did. And I like that. I like Miyazaki, so somebody trying to copy him on this level, and pulling it off.
Who doesn't?
Is well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's welcome. I appreciate it, I guess. The film revolves around like the Latin Quarter building, the clubhouse, where all the students at this school, I don't know if it's a private school or what it is. There's a Latin Quarter building where they all hang out and all the clubs meet and stuff. And that building is just so packed with character and like evidence of people living there, and well, not literally living there, but it's packed with evidence of people's time and their travels throughout the building, and the love that they have for that place. It's really, really hard not to love a scene set in that building. It's very charming, all the clutter and its history and how desperately the students cling to it, and like all the little meetings they have. Because this film is set in the 60s when the student protests in Japan were like really heating up, and there was a feeling, I think, shared by a lot of young people in Japan that it was time for a changing of the guard. And that's what happens in this film. I mean, it's not violent or anything, but they travel to Tokyo and they ask to see the mayor, and they convince him to visit, and they win. Like it feels good. It's an uplifting story. They're able to save the building that they love and preserve all those memories. And then on the other side of the coin, you have the romance between Umi and Shun, which I also really liked. There's a weird complication in there, like a potentially incestuous complication. But the way, like the stoic way that they went about repressing those feelings for one another until they couldn't do it anymore, and eventually she says to him, even before they find out they're not related, she says to him, "I'm always going to love you, and that's not going to change, and that's just the way it is." That scene, like the timing of her delivery of that sentiment as the train is approaching, and she feels like she just has to get it out before the two of them are separated when one gets on the train, is I was captivated by it. I felt like it was real. So I liked both halves of the film. I liked the romance, and I liked the
political.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, the coming of age parts and all of that. I liked that it was a period piece. I really liked the music. I think that contributed to the feel of the time period. There's a lot that I like about the film.
Yeah, it's been a long while that I have watched From Up on Poppy Hills. I think it's like 8-9 years, because I remember watching it the first time in 2012, I think, and haven't watched that since then. I do remember the very sequence that you said about her, like saying to him that she gonna love him anyway, even if they are related, and it left a sour taste on my mouth even now. So that's the one part that like keep me from really embracing the movies, and hopefully like when I give it a next chance, it's gonna have like a much nicer impact to me, because yeah, that scene just killed me.
Just killed you.
Yeah, I mean like her attitude towards that is just wrong. It's not wrong. It's just disturbing.
I guess I wasn't disturbed by it. I bought it. I bought it completely.
Well, yeah, that's the difference between me and you then,
Yeah.
because I just feel a bit disturbed by that. Because like if that happened for real, what would she do? What would they do?
This isn't real. It's a movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm down for the
So
weird shit. You know what I mean? Like, After the Rain, if it had gone in a different direction, I would have followed it from up on Poppy Hill. If they had been related by blood, the feeling that I got from it was still, um, it was a lovely feeling.
right.
I really liked the scene.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if this is happening in real life, then like in front of my eyes in the 3-dimensional world, then I'm gonna be like, hey, that's it's a little weird,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but I also understand that like that one scene doesn't really it's not a good point for me to just dismiss the whole film, because I really enjoy the rest of the films. I enjoy his character. I enjoy like on these like on the setting behind that, and I think it's set in the time where Tokyo first is that gonna be opening for Olympic, I think.
yep, there are
Yeah,
posters
so
and stuff for the Tokyo Olympics, and there's dialogue about it. Yeah,
yeah, so like it's the whole movie is like looking for a new change, and like you really feel it. You really feel the spirit of it. Like the new era is gonna come soon, and yeah, I think I will revisit it back someday, just to
do it.
get that nasty taste out of my mouth.
Well, I mean, it might strengthen it. So just do it whenever you're feeling like you're in an adventurous mood.
Yeah, challenging myself again.
All right,
All
what is
right.
your number 6?
Number 6 is the one that I think I love it, and I don't think that you like it that much. The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya.
Ah, yes.
For me, it's the one where it's the best out of the Haruhi franchise, and I already love the franchise a lot. But this one it's given more depth to many characters, especially Yuki, and even to Kion as well. And it have a proper like story. So I don't know if the newcomer gonna be. I think the newcomers still like without the knowledge of the franchise still watch it, and like get out, understand everything out of it.
No
But
way.
like the experience of the franchise will for them will get the most out of the film. So yeah, you still need to watch the franchise. It's overlong. It's certainly overlong, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I definitely remember it
All
being
right,
long. Um,
it's like 2.5 hours.
yeah, but if you're a fan of Haruhi, like I can't imagine what better, what it could have done better.
Yep, true. And this might be the final Haruhi piece that we're gonna see in anime. So treasure is as much as you like.
I guess you're not counting the 2015 spinoff.
I'm not cutting that. It's not on the same studio at all.
I remember watching the first episode. I was determined to like it, because everybody hated it. So I was like, you know what? Fuck everybody else. Like I'm gonna watch this and I'm gonna like it. And then I tried it, and I don't think it was terrible, but it just did end up feeling kind of like a very run of the mill
I
rom
watched the
com
whole
type of
season of
thing.
that. I watched the whole season of that, and and I think the worst part of it is that it just feels so inoffensive. It just feels so like every other franchise about rom-com, you know.
Yeah, it just feels kind of normal, kind of pedestrian. There's nothing
Yep,
challenging about it.
yep. That's true.
Yeah.
And Yuki on that version is not interesting to begin with.
Yeah. Well.
So,
Yeah. Oh well.
all right, what is your number 6?
Her Blue Sky. So
Yep.
Mario Okada script, and damn, I can't remember who directed this. It's the same guy who's
Um,
directed a whole bunch of stuff that she's written, not
yeah, I know
just
Hana.
not just Hana and Anthem of the Heart, but TV series as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, other TV series. I'm actually not going to say anything about it. We have a podcast episode about Her Blue Sky, and I still remember that episode, that recording. I think that's one of the best jobs that I've ever done at explaining why I like something so much, at
All
least where
right.
anime is concerned. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're listening to this and you're interested in my thoughts on why Her Blue Sky is the best of those three works, Anohana, Anthem, and Her Blue Sky, then you can go check out that podcast episode. You can search for it, but
All right.
I wrote it in Leet Speak because there was some copyright issue or something. So just search for H3R, and you'll find it.
All right. I have one question for you though. Have you watched the Anthem of the Heart?
I have, yes. I watched it very shortly after I watched Her Blue
Blue
Sky.
Sky.
Yeah,
Huh.
I just thought it was
All right.
okay. I didn't.
Hmm.
The main character, she was so reserved and like withdrawn and stuff. I just I didn't feel like she held a candle to Aoi from Her Blue Sky. So Aoi had so much attitude and she had so much room to grow. And I didn't really get that from Anthem of the Heart.
Yep. Yep. All right. Understandable. All right. So up to our top 5 now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my 5, as you can guess, is Wolf Children.
All right.
I think it's a Hosada most ambitious project. It's messy, but it's have a lot of raw emotions. It's all about families, and I really like the fact that like the children, like the two of them, you I think Yuki and Meme, or
Yuki and Ame.
Yuki and Name, like both of them when they start growing up, they show, like Yuki, he's more wolf oriented, and Ame he's more like a human. But as they grow up, they reserve the role. I really like that. It touched many of his favorite themes, like theme about family, about bonding, and about growing up as well. It just it messy, but it just, like it speaks to my heart a lot. I think this is one of Hosoda best.
Yep. I'll be speaking about Wolf Children again in a bit.
All right. So we can skip that, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to it.
We come back to it. Yep.
Unless
Let's
there's
go with
anything
your
you want to
number.
say about it right now, like anything more.
Yeah, well, I think Hosoda best is like the best statement that I can ever say to these
Yeah.
movies.
I think it is his best film.
Agree.
But, I'll get to that. My number 5 is Giovanni's Island.
Yep.
I really like the art style of this movie. I feel like whoever directed it, and I'm embarrassed that I don't know who it was, but whoever it was, I feel like they were kind of inspired by Yuasa a little bit, letting the character art be kind of crude, and focusing more on how it animates rather than how it looks. The backgrounds also have a really interesting kind of sketchy paint on glass quality to them. most visible in like the shots of the sky, where you can. It's almost as though you can see the like tendrils of wind frozen in place, like plastered onto the sky, snaking their way across the blue. It's really, really interesting. I don't think it's a pretty film, but I do think that for whatever reason the style that they chose works out well for it. Probably because it's a movie that's about very ugly events, but that's told through a child's perspective. So the choices they made in the art department kind of softened the blows of the story, and there are some weighty blows, man. The death of Kanta is, I mean,
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it just wrecks me whenever I see it. It's so drawn out, and his wheezing and gasping. Well, he's not gasping. I mean, he can't gasp because his life is at its end. He doesn't even have the energy to gasp. He's just wheezing through his throat, which is constricted. And of course, there's an allusion to Night on the Galactic Railroad as he does so, because that book was written in part as a way to mourn his dead sister, Miyazawa's dead sister. So the use of that book, that children's book, as a point of reference throughout the film is superb. Not just in those really heavy scenes, or in that scene in particular, but also I remember when the father is being taken away because of he was violating the law that the Russians had laid down when they occupied Shikotan Island, I guess. When he was taken away, he was taken out on a boat to a much larger vessel that had like red searchlights. And as that was happening, Junpei was thinking to himself that he remembered the part of the story where the scorpion's body bursts into flame, because he wants something good to be done, because he's trapped in the well. He wants good to come of his life. He wants to sacrifice himself for others, which is what his father did. And the fire that the scorpion is consumed by is paralleled by those red searchlights. I think the film did a really good job paralleling Junpei's experience with the story of Giovanni in Galactic Railroad. And it's a brutal film, man. Even though it is brutal, it still finds plenty of moments of wonder, like the scene where Junpei puts the wreath of flowers on Tanya's head, and all of a sudden the field of dandelions around them comes to life, and the flowers like ascend into the sky. That's really, really fanciful sort of scene. And then there's the scene where they connect the railroad tracks. Like, she's living in one half of the house and they're living in the other one, and they connect the railroad tracks so that the little toy train can go between, like through the door and between their homes. And they turn off all the lights and they set up the pots and pans as like little landmarks, and they see the shadow cast by the train's headlamp, like being reflected off and through all those different objects, and it creates fantastical shadows on the wall. I feel like there's a big contrast between those sorts of beautiful moments and then the ugly realities of war, post-war, in this film. So I think there's a tremendous balancing act that happens there.
Yep. Well, agree with that. And I already talked about Giovanni Iceland on before.
Yeah. So we can move on to number 4. Good with that?
Yep. All right. So my number 4 is an epic story. It's The Wind Rises.
Okay.
So, yep, I think you're gonna talk more about this later on.
Yeah.
For me, my books, I feel the story is epic in every way, and it serves as a satisfying conclusion in terms of the movie concern all of Miyazaki's favorite themes. like flying and dealing with Japan during the 1920s. And when I said that, it also the earthquake scene. It's just so amazing.
Yeah.
It just took me out completely. And so like any others, Miyazaki and Ghibli film, the act and the production in general is memorable and breathtaking. The watercolor style background are drawn with so much care and detail, and the animation alone it just bring the movie to life. It for me, like sparing the one that he's making right now, it's just the ultimate, um, satisfying ending that he Miyazaki could have done here.
Mm. Yeah. It was a good final film until it
Yep.
wasn't.
And it wasn't. That's exactly it.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's a good movie.
Yep. All right. I think you can talk about rather more. So up to your number 4 now.
Right. That would be Makia, when the promised flower
Makia.
blooms.
Yep.
I already spoke about it a little bit earlier, so just
Mm.
briefly, I'll mention a few things that we didn't touch on before. One is the soundtrack by Kenji Kawai. He's one of my favorite Japanese composers, even more than people like Joe Hisaishi, who's the Ghibli guy. Kenji Kawai is a genius. He's the one who scored Ghost in the Shell. He provided those weird. He engineered those weird chanting vocals in Mob Psycho 100 soundtrack. If you remember those.
Oh, right.
That was Kenji Kawai. He's worked on a lot of stuff that I really love, and he doesn't just stick to one style either, like a lot of film composers tend to do, regardless of nationality or anything like that. A lot of film composers rehash their work over and over. Kenji Kawai is not like that. He refuses to sit still. And in this scene, or in this film, it's a medieval epic fantasy, and he brought it. He brought the strings, man. They are just like, they take you to heaven. I really like the score.
Mm-hmm.
Themes of motherhood, obviously running through the film like intricately. They're kind of woven into it the same way that the characters weave that hibiol cloth. I think that may have been intentional. Like the reason that the film was so focused on that theme was because the characters of the Eorf are like so single-minded and have such a duty and a purpose in weaving like the destiny of the world through that cloth.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that destiny unfolds is through the passage of time and of families and of generations, and mothers are the one like unchanging constant in that process. You need a life giver. You need someone to bring life into the world. That's what mothers do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a beautiful film. Damn, is it is it good looking, man? The
Yep.
streams, the skies, the fields. They're like practically photographic in detail.
Mm.
The cities, I love the motif of the water wheel turning in the middle of the city, where Makia and Ariel find themselves, like during his teenage years when they're blending into that huge city. The water wheel turning in a circular fashion kind of works in harmony with the themes of the film, I feel. Like kind of the circle of life, because eventually when we reach the end of the film, Ariel is starting a family of his own, and Dita is becoming a mother, and Makia aids her in that process when she comes by the house. I think the film loses its way a little bit in the final act. It just gets too busy, and that's a shame, because this
It has a lot going on, so that's why
yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I mean it takes place over the course of like what, 20 years probably.
Yep.
So there's a lot to fit in there, and I think the film did a reasonable job with it. Of course, I totally respect anyone who the viewpoint of anyone who thinks that it fell apart completely. If the film is not engaging to you, then when it starts to take those jumps, you're going to get left behind, and you're going to feel as though the film crumbled. So I can understand the point of view of anyone who feels that way. But the film very quickly engaged me, and so it didn't leave me behind when it took those jumps. I ran to keep up with it willingly and gladly. So that's how I feel about Makia. I really like it.
All right. Another melodrama.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. I think I figured out your top 3.
Yeah.
And I think you did on mine as well. There's one movie that we haven't mentioned out of all the that we mentioned, and I think this will be sit comfortably at our 3, I guess.
We'll see.
So let's see if I right on this. So my number 3 here is In This Corner of the World.
Yes, that is also my pick for number 3.
All right. Yep. So, In This Corner of the World for me is its truest life drama ever. Like in that, it is slide into the ordinary life of an ordinary girl during the war periods. It's quiet, it's slow, but melancholic and beautiful at times. I think the best part of In This Corner of the World is its restraint to go heavy-handed, because at times they could easily go for melodramatic in any moments, but somehow the main focus is always the life of the main character Suzu, and the terror of war. It's just a part of it. So I just feel the story in general is quite subtle, humane, and really humorous and warm. It's a perfect example of a work that can shake off all the flashiness to seek for something real and simple.
Yeah, it is warm. It is humorous. That's true. There are a lot of humorous scenes, like the one where she's sketching the boats in the harbor, and then the army MPs come by and accuse her of being a spy.
Yep. And
I
also remember the scene where they bombing, and then her father-in-law just fall asleep.
Yeah, that's right. And then they cut back to the house, and she's crying. Suzu is crying, and so is somebody else, another family member. And you think something terrible has happened because he's lying there on a futon in bed. He could be dead.
Yep.
He's not moving. But then his wife chastises him. She's like, "I can't believe you fell asleep during an air raid."
Yeah.
And
until it break your heart.
Yeah.
Like the scene where she lost her arms. I think that scene is just so effective because it doesn't show it. So like we like after a while did we know that she lost her arm, and like her it's not her kid, it's
no, it's her husband's sister's child. So I'm not even sure what you would call that. I don't think there's a term for that.
All right, so that and that girl passed away. It just when we learn about that, it just breaks your heart.
Yes, I had already seen it, So, and I've seen this film. I think this is my 3rd time seeing it. I still haven't seen the director's cut, the longer version, because I know one came out.
It hasn't come out yet online, I think.
Really? Okay. I'm surprised by that. I mean, the film's excellent the way it is. So
yeah, that's right.
Though I do wonder what the director's cut does, because one issue, maybe the only issue that I have with this film, is that there are sometimes cutaways, little small, brief beats that only go on for like 10 seconds. The movie will cut away and show like a little domestic scene, and then it'll cut right back to a longer scene that's more relevant to Suzu's her journey, I guess you would call it. Even though it's
I don't remember that.
There are a bunch of them. I mean, it's not as though there's a format shift or anything. There are alternate art styles in this film, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, I just finished watching it. It was the film that I finished watching only minutes before we hopped online to talk. So, those did stick out to me, and because they often depicted characters that weren't in the previous scene, it made it a little disorienting. I feel like there are a lot of details that you could miss watching this film for the first time or the 10th time even. It's packed with detail, but really that's what makes the film so wonderful. Is that it is about daily life for the most part, and I mean the air raids and the bombings, they intrude on that, but they don't destroy it, because by the end of the film she's beginning to move forward with her life. She's adopted this young girl. Her husband is alive and well. Their parents are both alive. Her sister still kicking back in Hiroshima. Although her sister was sick, I'm just realizing now. I wonder if she survived.
She was sick. Yeah, right. And I think Suzu, the main character, she's just a perfect protagonist for this type story. Because she's normal enough to be like the everyday man, but her ahead attitude is just so wonderful to watch. Like even in a time of terror and a time of hardship, she just doesn't really think about it much. Just move move on with her life.
Yeah. And she's got her head in the clouds.
Yeah, that's right. But and then we still see some moment that it affected her, and she still blame herself for the loss of that child as well. And I think it just feels all too real.
Yeah, I mean, if the film had delved into like the psychology of her losing her arm and feeling responsible for the death of that child, if it had stayed in that place for too long, it would have actually felt too real. But the film's not. It doesn't weigh itself down unnecessarily with those concerns. I mean, it's kind of like Giovanni's Island in all of the wonderful imagery, like the field of flowers coming to life and the shadows cast by the train, its headlamp. There's a lot of that in this corner of the world. Even during some of the bombings, the way that those explosions dot the sky like little bursts of paint, or the portrait that she paints, or I should say the landscape that she paints of the waves cresting in the water, jumping like little white rabbits. Early on in the film, she paints that for her first love, who later comes back. And there's that scene between the two of them where she refuses to sleep with him.
Yeah, and also to think that like she lost her hand, so she couldn't even draw anymore.
Is that the hand that she lost? Was she?
That's the hand that she lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I take.
Yeah, I mean that would make it a much heavier loss for her, because her art was a big part of her.
Yeah.
She was always drawing. I mean, even when she got lost in the red light district, I don't know if you would call it the red light district, but she gets directions from the prostitute, Lynn, who we find out her name is. And it was interesting. She kept referring back to Lynn by name, as though they had a much bigger connection than the small one we saw. I do wonder what the director's cut adds. Maybe the best way to find out would actually be to read the manga that this is based on. I think it's based on a manga.
It's based on the manga, and it's just like 4 volumes, so it's not that much. And it had like a prequel story before that as well, if I remember correctly.
I wonder if the prequel story is Suzu's childhood that we actually see in this movie. I wonder how much of all that material was incorporated into this single film.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
And
interesting. It's interesting to think about, and I mean, it's interesting to think about this film in general because it is so packed with detail. It's so well realized,
yep.
and there are so many characters with distinct personalities. It's really a film that you can rewatch for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I do think it's just perfect the way it is, you know.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So let's get to our number two.
Sure. What's yours?
All right. My number two would be The Tale of Princess Kaguya.
Okay.
For me, it's just a visual beauty watching the films. On the it's all look like the watercolor paintings with stroke. For like long stroke for more calm and relaxing, and when the and we have like a rush lights to emphasize the frenzy and stressy situations. So they just look like the moving art for me. So the visual of it are really outstanding, but it also backed up by a very emotional and profound and slow burning stories. I do agree with you that the story run a bit too long for its time. It sometimes it does feel like forever. But like at the heart of it still say like the fate of the princess Kaguya, who like destined not to be living on earth with the people. It's like she um and also like the film inhabits some of the comedy moment as well, which I think work very well. And I just remember distinctive a scene where she as a child, like just playful play with her parents, and just laughing all the times, and just this moment, like the focus, the amount of the detail focus on her movement, on how she look at things. It just for me at least, the directors who that passed away already is, I think, much more as a accomplished director than Mikizawa, Miyazaki. Sorry.
Miyazaki.
Yep.
Put some
So
respect on the
just
man's name.
so yeah, it's a bold statement I make right there. But for me, this one is just a masterpiece.
Yep. I mean, I haven't seen the film in a long time, so I can't really comment more on it than my general memory. But
Yep.
rest in peace,
Uh,
to Isao Takahata.
Yep.
He left us with quite an artistic statement.
Yep. I find myself always enjoy the work of Takahata more than Miyazaki.
Well, as you'll soon find out, I am the opposite.
Right. All right. So what is your number two?
Number two, my second favorite film of the decade, and to be honest, I would say that 1, 2, and 3 for me are pretty interchangeable. I love them all.
I would say my top 5 are all masterpiece.
Well, I did have to order them, and for me, number 2 is Wolf Children.
Yep.
When I first watched this film, I remember thinking that the third act was kind of weak.
The first or the third?
The third. I remember
yep.
thinking that the third act was not very strong. It didn't conclude the film very well. And I rewatched it today, and I found myself thinking, what was it? How could I have been so foolish? The film is excellent the way it is. I feel like everything in the third act was necessary. I feel as though the scene where Yuki and what's the kid's name? Sohei are in the school overnight was necessary to resolve her guilt about his injury, and more importantly, the shame that she had developed surrounding the wolf part of herself. They needed to have that talk in that empty classroom at night, so that she could like cleanse herself of that burden. That was really important for her character.
Mm-hmm.
and less convinced, I suppose, by all, like, the mother Hana trying to scale the mountain to catch up with Ame,
Mm-hmm.
and like falling down the mountain and him having to rescue her. Um, that's the one part of the film, I guess, that I can understand people having an issue with. But it gives them a goodbye. For it creates a situation where it's necessary for her to be rescued, and if he's the one to do it, it gives them one last chance to see each other. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that goodbye happens is just so gut wrenching, because when she calls out to him, he there I can't remember what phrase she uses, but there's something that she says, and you can see the change in expression wash over his face, like he's reconsidering everything, his decision to leave and live on the mountain and succeed his senpai.
Mm-hmm.
In just for a moment, he wonders if that's the right decision, and then he turns without a word and bounds up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like I could feel that he that his life, there was a fork in the road of his life right there in that moment. I could
Yeah.
sense that.
Mm.
Um, so apart from that, I just love everything else about the movie, man. Like, oh my god, I think that Haru Kuroki's performance as Yuki in her childhood
Mm.
uh, is the best vocal performance in anime history.
Wow.
Uh,
Bold statement.
her her shrieks of laughter
Yeah.
as she's running through the field when they arrive at their new home in the country, like her
Oh my
scrappy
god. That.
attitude, her the little raspiness in her voice when she pouts and like says that she's going to do something and then says it again more intently and then transforms into, like, gets her wolf face on the third time that she says it with her little fists balled up next to her. Um, I was amazed at her versatility because she also plays Yuki as a young woman.
Mm.
Maybe young woman is
Yep.
not the right word. She's like 12 or something when the film ends, but
Yep.
um, still, she's able to bridge that gap between child Yuki and 12-year-old Yuki.
Yep.
Very, like, really, really well. I was blown away.
Yeah, I remember that scene where where the mother and the two children getting a new house and they drive. I think they ride a bike and then they all laugh and then they fall into like the gardens and then they all laugh. I
Mm.
remember that scene like the one that you just mentioned before.
The
And
scene I remember where they're all laughing is the one in the snow,
in the
where,
snow.
where they're bounding down the snowy mountain. They're all
All right,
running down the
maybe
snowy mountain.
maybe memory was wrong at that point. But I remember that scene where like after I watched that scene, I was like, my God, like things gonna get worse from there. And
Maybe there
and
was a
it
scene like
does.
that. I don't know. Is it the
And
scene where they all howl, like Yuki
I just
howls
remember,
and then
I just
Ame
remember
howls?
there's just the one scene where the three of them are all laughing in like uh just they all laugh.
Hmm.
They're really happy.
Yeah, I mean the film is great at,
Yep.
at creating those moments. Just like pure, there are moments in this film of pure joy.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
True. True.
it's amazing.
And I think it's just very appropriate that like two of her children, one of them will like get become a human and one of them will become a wolf and maybe that that will change at time as well. So I think it just like open up to many possibility and it just yeah it's just great.
I mean, I think Ame went full Call of the Wild at the end. I don't think he's ever coming back because he assumes that full wolf form, um,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
he doesn't even speak to his mother during their final scene together. He's like, even human speech is beyond him at that point. He's become one with nature.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, I just think there's a lot of observational truth to this movie. There's a lot of truth about the way that people feel, the way they relate to one another. There's a lot of truth about motherhood and childhood. And I'm really glad that Hosoda's work has reached an audience that goes far beyond just anime fans, because this is a film that needed to be made, I feel, and needs to be seen by, all sorts of people, by mothers with their children, by men who, in seeing it, will get a glimpse into the bond between their lovers and the children that they bear, that they may not have been able to view otherwise. I think this is an important film for people to see.
You know what? I'm really glad that you like watching all of these good stuff for the last few days. But heed my advice. Just don't watch too many sad stuff. like three in one day is too much.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wolf Children is a film that a lot of other films will hit you with a devastating development in like later in the film. There'll be the tear-jerking moments will start to arrive. I was crying from the start when I was watching this movie, man. This movie is just, but I mean, half the time it was from sadness, and half the time it was from, because I was like totally elated and on cloud 9.
Yeah, I think because you know the outcome already, so that's why it makes you feel more emotional knowing the outcome.
I mean, maybe, but the first time I ever watched this movie, I cried constantly, like nonstop, because the kids, like, it's just the best depiction of childhood that I've seen probably in animation.
Yep. All right. All right, let's get on to our number one movies of the last decade, shall we?
Sure.
All right, so I think, as you can guess, my number one is The Night is Short Walk on Girl by Yuasa. I do think that The Night is Short is the extraordinary mess of an experience. It can be overwhelming, like you said, but for me, like the overwhelming feeling is kind of the point of the films, because The Night is Short is like an examination of like pulling out the maximum of our life in the spirit of the Black Handmaiden. So all these are seemingly random events, the coincidence of meeting with new people, all point to the theme that like all these things be tied together by the restraint of fate.
Right.
So it's just the movie that I know that I will enjoy multiple times while I watch it, and because I just love absolutely everything about it. I love the characters, I love the world, I love its central message, I love its tone, I love everything.
That's good.
Yep. So I'm happy to put that on my number one. Yes.
I'm not sure when I'll watch this film again. Didn't have a good experience with it the second time around.
But I think you had the similar experience when you rewatch Tatami Galaxy as well.
Yeah, that's true, and I did consider that. I thought about it. But the Tatami Galaxy, the fact that it's split up into episodes really helps its case. The stories are segmented, and time resets. Time doesn't reset in this film. In fact, time is the opposite happens pretty much. Time is compressed.
Yep, and it's string together. Yep.
Yeah, it was a difficult watch for me.
All right.
But I mean, there's the sheer ambition of it, and the strange
and the musical performance.
Yeah, the musical performances, but also the general strangeness of it, and the lovability of some of the characters. The references to Tatami Galaxy and the personality of the film comes through. I think it's an impressive piece of work. I'm just not sure when I'll see it again.
All right, let's hear number one.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually.
It will.
All right, number one. My number one film of the decade is The Wind Rises
Mm-hmm.
by perhaps the greatest anime director who ever lived, Hayao
Yep.
Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about giving it to Wolf Children or In This Corner of the World, and I mean honestly, I love all three films.
Mm-hmm.
So it could I might wake up tomorrow and regret that I didn't reorder them. It's all arbitrary in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do like this movie a lot, and I think what perhaps gives it a leg up over the other two is that it is a film that does not it doesn't yield its treasures easily. There's the film it stands a little bit at a distance, and I think that's represented in Jiro's character.
Mm-hmm.
He stands a little bit at a distance from everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
and he's voiced by Hideaki Anno, the
Yeah.
Evangelion director, which I think contributes to that. I'm not sure how I feel about his vocal performance.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I would go farther than that. I would say that it's not very nuanced. Next time I
Yeah.
watch this film, I might try the dub. But the thing is, if you watch the dub, you don't get to listen to Hideaki Anno sing, which you do when you watch the
Yeah.
sub.
Just to avoid his his voicing, it just all right.
I mean, I don't think the performance is bad, but it is kind of one note, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think that does inform his character a little bit, Jiro's character, but I might like to hear him with a bit more expressiveness and see how I
Yep.
feel about that.
Yep.
I do like Jiro's character though. I feel as though he's a dedicated man. I think dedicated is the best word for him. He's dedicated to his work. He's dedicated to his wife,
Mm-hmm.
and despite that, in the end, he's left behind by the woman he loves and by his country, who used him for his genius, and embroiled itself in a losing war. And at the end, in that final dream sequence, and I love all the dream sequences in this film. The way that the film enters them and then exits them is like really interesting. It's seamless,
Yep.
and yet the dream sequences are so heightened. You wonder how did they do it. I think that's something interesting to note when you go back and watch the film, to study. Like academically, how was it achieved? But anyway, in the final dream sequence, there's that graveyard of zeros, the plane that he engineered, that he designed. There's a whole bunch of them, hundreds and hundreds, wrecked in piles, and he walks through them in order to talk to his inspiration, the Italian engineer Caproni. And Caproni says that what he did was justified, like his association with the army and his design of the plane was justified because he made something beautiful. And I feel like what's so interesting about this film, maybe what's giving it a leg up, is that there's so much complexity to that statement. Is Caproni correct? Is he wrong? Does it matter? Or is it the only thing that matters? The film doesn't give you any definitive answers, and the way that it ends is pretty ambiguous. Like he says, "Come with me. I have some delicious wine that we can savor together." But what kind of ending is that? What to leave behind all the complications and the struggles of the real world, and to end in a dream sequence with the promise of liquor. It's melancholic. It's ambiguous. It's unclear. I feel like that uncertainty plays throughout the whole film. Actually, it leaves me with a lot to think about whenever I watch it. And
I
I also
agree.
love the romance. The romance is just fucking 10 out of 10 shit. Like, oh my god, the wedding scene
Yeah.
when she's like slowly walking through the hallways, um, and I oh man, the scene where they're about to spend their first night as a man and a woman, as husband and wife, and
Mm-hmm.
he, his assumption is that they're just going to sleep separately because her body's not in a great state. She's got
Mm-hmm.
tuberculosis and she's in extremely poor
Yep.
health. But instead, she just, opens, she lifts the cover of the futon and says, "Come
Mm-hmm.
here."
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was I was blown away by that. Like what she must feel for this guy in order to make that
Mm-hmm.
decision.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, really, really, really amazing stuff.
I agree with you. I feel the sentiment about Jiru being detachment from the rest of the world, because I do think that for him it just not um it just like he makes something that he really love.
Yeah.
So it's not about like contributing, like the weapon of war to like to kill thousands of people, but it's just like doing what he love, and like to do service for his country as well.
I
So
wonder how much he
yeah.
cared about his country. I'm not sure that he. I'm not sure that he
That's
did.
true. Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
The dialogue between him and his friend Honjo, who is constantly lamenting like Japan's lagging technology and their
Mhm.
backwards practices, like the oxen that pull the aircraft to the field. Do you remember
Mhm.
those scenes?
Yep, yep, yep.
There's a field of oxen near the hangar, and they they use animals to pull like
Yep.
to pull these state of the art machines to be tested. Honjo he's disturbed almost by how far behind Japan is on the global stage, but you don't know exactly how Jiro feels about that. He
Mhm.
doesn't put it in. He doesn't ever put it into words. I don't think. I think at one point he says that Japan is a backwards nation, but he doesn't do it with judgment.
Mhm.
Um, he's a bit of an enigma,
Mhm. Mhm.
in stark contrast to the characters from In This Corner of the World and Wolf
Wolf children.
Children.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Makia.
yeah, definitely Makia. Those characters are like open books.
Yep.
Um, yeah, there's something about this film that intrigues me. I don't know if I'll ever get tired of watching it because I feel like there's something like I'm lacking some experience. There's something that I can't understand about this movie because of where I am in my life, and I wonder
Yep.
like if it'll ever happen for me, or if
Yeah.
the circumstances of this film are just so far beyond me that it'll always be a marvel.
Yeah. Well, just give it 25 more years
Yeah, I may
when you
need
get.
to I may need to reach Miyazaki's age in
Yep.
order
Yep.
to
Yep. Yep.
truly appreciate this film. Maybe we all will.
Yep. All right. And I think that's wrap up our top 15 anime of the last decade. And it's run a bit of a long time now. 2 hours, 20 minutes is a long time. But
Yeah.
I'm glad if you still make it to this time. I'm glad you made it. Congratulations to you. Um,
3 cheers.
yeah, just share your thought of what you think is the best anime movies of your favorite anime movies of the 2010s.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of the ones we mentioned, right? There are no other good ones.
Hopefully no. Maybe if you include some other films like One Piece, the movies,
Oh,
then
sure.
we
Yeah.
all right. We see you in 2 weeks for yep, for the new podcast.
Yeah, we'll be doing something, and it's not going to be this long. We can promise that at least.
Yeah, true. All right. See you soon.
Bye bye.